Hello and welcome to Wednesday's Words of Worship. I'm Kevin, the worship pastor here at Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church. Now for most of us, the last weeks have been kind of disappointing because we haven't been able to worship together in the same physical space. Now many churches, including ours, have been communicating the message of Jesus through social media and other technical avenues. So what aspect of worship have you missed the most during this season of separation? Or maybe a better question should be, have you been worshiping even though we haven't been in our church buildings? You know, when we can't come together, we may begin to replace our church attendance time with other well-intentioned activities. We can allow our physical distance to affect our relational distance to God. And if we're not careful, we can easily fall out of the habit of worshiping. Now, in the 7 letters to the 7 churches, God commends the church at Ephesus. He commends them for their patient endurance, their intolerance of evil, suffering for Christ's name, and exposing of false apostles. The church looked amazing on paper, but Jesus tells them, I have this against you, that you have abandoned the love you had at first. That's Revelation 2:4. Now, because of our nature to be independent and self-sufficient, we can sometimes forget that we are dependent on God and that we need to worship Him just because of who He is and what He's done for us. Now, there's a story in the Bible about a lady who worshiped by pouring oil or perfume on Jesus' feet. It's in Luke chapter 7. And the short account says this: when one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman of that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came, and with an alabaster jar of perfume, she stood behind him, and at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. And she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Now, most Bible scholars agree that the alabaster jar of perfume she brought was extremely expensive. Some say that it could have even cost the equivalent of a year's wages. Now, one of the things that we can take away from the story is that this woman didn't give Jesus her leftovers. She gave him the most expensive thing she had. She was an extravagant worshiper. Now, the text says that she had lived a sinful life. She sought after Jesus to find out where he was. And as she stood at Jesus' feet, she wept, realizing her need for a Savior. She was broken before him. Her acts of humility reveal to us that she understood that Jesus was worthy of her worship just because of who he was and what he would eventually do for all of humanity on the cross. Now, this woman gave more than an extravagant gift. She anointed the lowest, most humble part of humanity, our feet. She washed them with her tears and dried with another treasured possession, her hair. This woman didn't wait for church to open. She didn't wait for Jesus to come into the temple or the synagogue. She didn't wait for an opportunity where people would see her and commend her for her actions. And she wasn't worried about what people would say or think. She extravagantly worshiped. Now, whether or not we're meeting in person, whether we attend a small or a large church, or whether we're financially blessed or we're just struggling to make ends meet, let's never forget that like that woman, we have also lived a sinful life. And no matter how good or how bad we've been, we need a Savior. And our Savior is worthy of our extravagant worship. Let's encourage each other to bring our best in worship, to worship humbly, deeply, and out of a genuine first love. Hey, thanks again for joining me on Wednesday's Words of Worship. So until we meet together again in person, join us Sunday on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram TV for our service and Connect Group streams. And let's continue to worship extravagantly together.